While I was mastering a crib for a newborn baby boy, I heard my wife say to her parents, "I've never felt love for him. He is only a source of money for me." The mother nodded. "When he gets weaker, we'll take the baby." The teenage daughter asked quietly, "Can we spit in his food?" I continued to work without taking a break. In the morning, my wife and her mother stood in tears at my door, begging me to come out. This has been the absolute worst week of my life. I'm still trying to make sense of everything that's happened, so if this comes out as a mess, I'm sorry. I just need to get this out of my chest before I explode. Some background first. I'm Nathan, 38 years old. My wife Olivia, 36, and I have been married for 10 years. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, Haley, who's 15 now. I've raised Haley as my own since she was 5 years old. We were expecting our first biological child together in about 3 weeks, a little boy we planned to name Noah. On the surface, everything looked perfect. We had a comfortable home in the suburbs, a decent savings account, plans for our future. I genuinely thought we were happy. I thought I was one of the lucky ones. Turns out I was just a fool wearing blinders. It all came crashing down last Saturday. I was in the garage, putting together Noah's crib, one of those ridiculous build-it-yourself sets from a chain store with what felt like 500 parts and instructions that might as well have been in ancient Greek. I had been at it for hours, completely focused, determined to get it right. The garage door was cracked open for some air, and right above it was our kitchen window. I could hear Olivia, her mother Diane, and Haley talking inside. At first, it was just background noise. Just the normal hum of conversation while I struggled to tell a washer from a bolt. But then I heard my name. You know that instinct when you hear your name? You can't help but listen even if you don't mean to. What I heard next made my blood run cold. Olivia was telling her mom how stressed she was about the baby, normal stuff, I guess, at first. Then the conversation took a sharp, dark turn. She started complaining about me, how I was annoying, how she felt like I was too clingy during the pregnancy. My hands froze mid-drill. I leaned closer without even realizing it. And then she said the words that have been playing on repeat in my head ever since. "I don't love him. I never did. He's just a paycheck with hands." There was no hesitation in her voice. No guilt. And Diane, her mom, didn't even act surprised. She just nodded and said something like, "We'll make sure you get custody when he falls apart." I stood there, completely paralyzed, the drill still in my hand, the pieces of Noah's crib scattered around me like debris from a bomb. And then, like someone twisting the knife, I heard Haley, the little girl I had tucked into bed, taught to ride a bike, help through school projects, giggle and ask, "Can I spit in his food?" They laughed. They actually laughed. I don't even know how, but somehow I kept moving. I kept drilling, pretending I hadn't heard a damn thing. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest, but my hands worked on autopilot. Piece after piece, bolt after bolt, numb and mechanical. When I finally came back inside, they were all smiles. Olivia even asked if I wanted some lunch. I looked at her, really looked, and I swear for a second I almost saw the strangers they really were. I mumbled something about not being hungry, barely made it to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor. I didn't cry out loud. I didn't punch the walls. I just broke inside as quietly as possible. For the past 6 days, I've been living a double life. Acting normal while dying inside. Smiling and playing the role of the loving husband, the excited soon-to-be dad, the supportive stepfather. All while planning my escape. I sleep beside a woman who sees me as nothing more than a bank account. I make breakfast for a teenager who wants to spit in my food. I rub the belly of a woman carrying my son, knowing she's already planning to take him from me. The worst part? When I look back now, the signs were there. They were always there. I was just too stupid, too trusting, too desperate to believe in my perfect little family. I've handled our finances since we got married. I make more money than Olivia, but I never thought twice about supporting her or Haley. I paid for Olivia to go back to school a few years ago. I bought Haley her phone, her laptop, her clothes. I thought we were a team. And all those times Olivia insisted we keep separate bank accounts for independence? Now I know why. Yesterday I started digging. I went through our joint account and found dozens of small transfers Olivia had made to her separate account over the past year. Small enough that I didn't notice, but they added up. I checked our shared Amazon account. She had been buying baby supplies, but sending them to Diane's house, not ours. I didn't even know half the stuff she ordered. Then I checked her Google Photos account, were linked on our family plan. Dozens of pictures. Dinners out with friends on nights she told me she was working late. Trips to the mall. Smiling selfies with people I don't even recognize. No direct proof of cheating, but honestly, at this point, would it even surprise me? Now, I'm stuck. 3 weeks away from the birth of my son, trapped in this nightmare, pretending I don't know the truth. Pretending I don't see Olivia and Diane's schemes, pretending Haley isn't quietly sneering at me when she thinks I'm not looking. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Every conversation feels like a landmine. Every smile I fake feels like it's carved out of stone. I'm documenting everything now, recording conversations with my smartwatch, backing up financial records, taking screenshots of text messages and Amazon orders. Gathering ammunition for what's coming. Because the one thing I know beyond any doubt, I will not let them take my son. They see me as a paycheck. They see me as a fool. They think they've already won. But they have no idea what's coming. The next few days passed in a haze, a surreal nightmare where nothing felt real. Olivia kept planning for the baby's arrival, decorating the nursery, picking out outfits, texting me photos of tiny shoes and onesies she found online. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple, excitedly preparing to welcome our little boy into the world. Inside, I was dying. I smiled when she showed me the baby books she bought. I rubbed her back when she complained about how tired she felt. I even kissed her forehead every night before bed like everything was normal. But every second, every heartbeat was a reminder that she didn't love me. That she never had. A few days after I overheard the conversation, Noah decided he wasn't going to wait. Olivia went into labor 3 weeks early. I drove her to the hospital, trying to keep it together, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. She groaned in pain beside me, and part of me still cared, still worried for her and the baby. Another part of me felt like I was ferrying a stranger. The labor was intense, but eventually Noah was born, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Tiny. Perfect. A little piece of me wrapped in hospital blankets. I was the one who cut the umbilical cord. I stood there, hands shaking, heart splitting in two. Olivia was crying, but all I could think about was how fake it all felt. I excused myself to the bathroom afterward and cried harder than I ever have in my life. It wasn't the joyful sobbing you see in movies. It was the cry of someone who realized his whole life had been a lie. After we brought Noah home, the real game began. I wasn't just pretending anymore, I was strategizing. The day after we got back from the hospital, I met with a lawyer. It cost me nearly $1,000 just for the initial consultation, but it was worth every penny. The lawyer was blunt. I needed to gather evidence, protect my financial assets, and most importantly, establish paternity rights immediately. He warned me, don't confront her yet. Stay calm. Stay smart. I started by rerouting part of my paycheck to a new bank account Olivia didn't know about. Not too much, just enough to build a safety net without tipping her off. Next, I bought a voice-activated recorder and placed it discreetly in the nursery. In my state, as long as one party consents to the recording, it's legal, and I consented. I caught so many little conversations when Olivia thought I wasn't around. Snide comments about me being too attached to Noah. Diane suggesting they take Noah to her house for a break, yeah, like I'd ever see him again after that. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment across town. Paid 3 months up front. It wasn't much, tiny kitchen, cramped bathroom, but it was safe. It was mine. Whenever Olivia and Haley were out, I moved a few things over. A bag of clothes, some personal documents, a box of baby supplies. Nothing big enough for them to notice was missing. Meanwhile, I kept playing the role of the doting husband. Changing diapers. Warming bottles at 3 a.m. singing lullabies even though my voice cracked from exhaustion and grief. Every smile I forced felt like another crack in the mask I wore. But I refused to let them win. I refused to be the fool they thought I was. And then came the final blow that made everything crystal clear. One afternoon, a week after Noah's birth, I caught Haley on one of the security cameras I had installed in the kitchen. I had set up a small nanny cam tucked into a fake plant, just in case. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Haley walked into the kitchen while I was in the nursery with Noah. She looked around, saw no one was watching, and spit directly into my coffee mug sitting on the counter. Then, with the most sickening little smirk, she stirred it and walked away like it was the most normal thing in the world. I watched the footage 3 times, my hands trembling. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was hatred. A teenager I had raised since kindergarten. I taught her to ride a bike, cheered at her soccer games, stayed up late helping with science projects. And this is who she had become when no one was watching. That night, when Olivia asked me to paint the nursery a new color to make it more relaxing, I smiled and said, "Of course, honey." Inside, I was already gone. I kept recording everything. Every time Diane made a snide comment about how much money we would get after the divorce. Every time Olivia rolled her eyes when I asked if I could hold Noah. Every cruel little aside they thought I wouldn't catch. At the same time, Olivia ramped up her public act, posting glowing Facebook statuses about how blessed she was. Instagram pictures of our beautiful family, tagging me in sappy posts about being the best husband and father. It was like living with two different people. The Olivia the world saw, the sweet, loving wife. The Olivia I knew, the cold, calculating woman who saw me as nothing more than a wallet with legs. Some nights, after Noah was asleep, I'd sit alone on the couch and scroll through our old photos. Smiling vacations, Christmas mornings, family outings. Were any of those moments real? Or was I just another prop in Olivia's carefully curated life? I whispered promises to Noah in the middle of the night during feedings. I'm here, buddy. I'll always be here. They won't take you away from me. I swear. Even when Olivia climbed into bed beside me, sighing dramatically about how tired she was, I stayed still. I couldn't even bring myself to touch her anymore. The woman I loved didn't exist. Maybe she never had. But one thing was real, Noah. My son. My reason for breathing. The plan was almost ready. I just needed the right moment. And it was coming sooner than they could ever imagine. The morning I decided to leave started like any other, deceptively normal. Olivia was buzzing around the house, reminding Haley about their plans, shopping spree for Haley's birthday, lunch at the mall, then getting their nails done. Diane sat at the kitchen table sipping her coffee like she had all the time in the world. I moved through the house on autopilot, pretending everything was fine. Wished Haley a fun day. Kissed Olivia's cheek. Even joked about being left alone with the dog. If they noticed anything different about me, they didn't show it. The second the front door closed and I watched them pull out of the driveway, my heart kicked into high gear. This was it. No more second-guessing. No more fear. I was done living a lie. I grabbed the 2 duffel bags I had hidden in the back of the closet, packed with my clothes, important documents, and some of Noah's essentials. I loaded them into the car as fast as I could without making noise. Then I went back inside for the most important piece. Noah was sleeping in his crib, bundled up in his soft dinosaur blanket. I scooped him up gently, cradling his tiny body against my chest. His head nestled into my shoulder with a little sigh, and for a second, the weight of what I was doing almost knocked me off my feet. But then I remembered. Remembered Olivia's voice calling me a paycheck with hands. Remembered Diane's voice plotting how to take my son from me. Remembered Haley smiling as she talked about spitting in my food. No. I was doing the right thing. I was saving my son and myself. I buckled Noah safely into his car seat, grabbed Baxter, who hopped into the back seat like he knew it was an adventure, and loaded up the last few things, the portable crib, formula, diapers, anything I could carry. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, my hands were shaking. I didn't look back. Not once. The drive to the new apartment felt endless. Every red light, every slow car, I kept expecting Olivia to call, to realize something was wrong, to come chasing after me. But my phone stayed silent. When we finally pulled into the tiny parking lot of the apartment complex, I felt like I could finally breathe. It wasn't much, a dingy one-bedroom unit with peeling paint and cracked linoleum floors, but it was ours. It was freedom. I set up Noah's crib in the corner of the bedroom, laid him down, and collapsed onto the couch. Baxter curled up at my feet with a soft whine, sensing the change. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to pretend. No fake smiles. No forced conversations. Just me, my son, and a future that was mine to protect. I wasn't finished yet, though. There was still one more thing to do. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder where I had saved the footage from the security camera, the one that caught Haley spitting into my coffee. I selected a single still frame, Haley mid-act, a smug grin on her face, and sent it to Olivia. No message. No explanation. Just the picture. Then I turned off my phone and set it face down on the table. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to sleep without fear. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, it nearly exploded from the flood of notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. Text after text after text. At first, confusion. Where are you? Are you okay? Nathan, please answer me. Then anger. How dare you leave? You'll regret this. Then panic. Please just call me. Please let us explain. But what hit me the hardest, not a single message asked about Noah. Not one. Only hours later did Olivia finally send a text asking, "Is Noah okay?" It told me everything I needed to know. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. They missed their paycheck with hands. That afternoon, my lawyer filed the divorce papers. Included were copies of all the evidence I had collected, the audio recordings, the texts, the financial statements, the video footage, official custody petitions. There was no more hiding. It was all out in the open now. Later that day, there was a knock at the apartment door. I peeked through the peephole. Olivia and Diane. I considered not opening the door at all, but I needed to see their faces. Needed them to know that the Nathan they thought they knew, the obedient, easygoing fool, was gone. I cracked the door open, holding Noah in my arms. They both looked terrible. Olivia was disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying. Diane, who always carried herself like a queen, now looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. "Please," Olivia said, voice cracking. "Just let us talk." I hesitated, then nodded. 15 minutes, I said. "If you raise your voices, you leave?" They nodded frantically and stepped inside. What followed was a bizarre mix of apologies, excuses, and manipulation. Olivia cried, swore she didn't mean the things she said. That she was stressed. That Diane pressured her. That she loved me, really? Diane, on the other hand, tried intimidation first, threatening court action, and when that didn't work, switched to bribery, offering to pay my rent if I moved back. I didn't say a word. Instead, I opened the audio files on my phone and hit play. Their voices filled the tiny apartment. Every cruel word. Every betrayal. Undeniable. Olivia broke down, sobbing into her hands. Diane went deathly silent. Neither had a defense. Neither even tried. And when I showed them the footage of Haley spitting into my coffee, whatever fragile hope Olivia had left in her eyes shattered completely. They begged to hold Noah. I said no. 15 minutes later, they were gone, leaving nothing behind but the echo of slammed doors and broken illusions. And for the first time since that terrible night in the garage, I smiled. Because I wasn't a fool anymore. I was free, and I was ready to fight for the life my son and I deserved. The next few months passed in a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. Noah was growing fast, smiling now, starting to babble, grabbing at everything with those tiny fists like the world belonged to him. Every sleepless night, every early morning bottle, every diaper change at 3 a.m., I took it all as a gift. Because no matter how tired I was, I knew we were free. The divorce moved quicker than I expected. My lawyer had built a bulletproof case, the recordings, the texts, the financial records, the video of Haley, everything laid out neatly, showing the court exactly who Olivia and her family really were. Olivia's lawyer tried to argue that I had entrapped them, that I violated their privacy. The judge shut it down immediately. In our state, one-party consent laws applied. I was well within my rights. It didn't take long for the court to grant me primary physical custody of Noah. Olivia would have visitation every other weekend and one evening during the week for dinner. Supervised at first. And for the final twist of the knife, Olivia was ordered to pay child support. Ironic, really? After all the times she called me a paycheck with hands, she was now the one sending money every month. I moved us out of the tiny one-bedroom as soon as the ink dried on the custody agreement. Found a small but cozy two-bedroom apartment not far from my job, close enough to the park, with a little yard where Baxter could finally run around. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't polished or fancy. But it was ours. And most importantly, it was honest. I started going to therapy. At first, it felt awkward sitting across from a stranger, trying to explain years of betrayal without sounding bitter. But slowly, piece by piece, I started putting myself back together. I joined a single dads group that met on Saturdays at the park. At first, I thought it would just be sad guys drinking bad coffee and complaining about custody battles. Instead, I found a group of men who had survived the same storms I had, men who knew what it felt like to be lied to, used, discarded. We swapped stories, laughed at the absurdity of it all, shared advice, held each other up when it felt impossible. It helped. More than I ever expected. As for Olivia, she changed too. Or at least, she tried. She started showing up to her visitation days on time. Texted to ask about Noah when it wasn't her day. Stayed polite even when I kept every conversation strictly about our son. Maybe losing custody shook her awake. Maybe she realized what she threw away. Or maybe she was just playing a long game. I didn't care. I wasn't playing anymore. I documented everything. Every drop-off, every pickup, every text exchange saved and backed up. Not because I wanted to use it against her, but because I refused to ever be blindsided again. Diane, on the other hand, stayed exactly the same. Passive-aggressive gifts for Noah started showing up, little notes tucked inside books about family always finding a way back together. They went straight into a box I labeled for when he's older, a box I planned to open with Noah someday when he asked questions about why his family looked different from the ones in storybooks. He deserved the truth, the real truth, not the sanitized version they would try to sell him. The hardest moment came when Haley texted again. Another long message about missing me, about remembering all the good times we had. She asked if we could meet. For a moment, I almost said yes. Almost told myself that maybe she was just a confused teenager caught in the middle of adult mistakes. Almost forgot the image of her smirking as she spat into my coffee. But then I remembered. Remembered how betrayal doesn't happen by accident. How cruelty like that doesn't come from nowhere. So I didn't respond. I let silence say what words couldn't. Some wounds are too deep to heal. One afternoon, during a drop-off, Olivia hesitated before handing Noah over. She looked different, tired, thinner, like the weight of everything had finally settled on her shoulders. "Nathan," she said quietly, do you think we could ever try again?" I stared at her for a long moment. I thought about our old house. About the nights I lay awake beside a woman who smiled at me with lies in her mouth. About building a crib while my world crumbled around me. About the security footage. About the lawyer's office. About the new life Noah and I were building, slow, imperfect, but real. And I said simply, no. Her face crumpled, but I didn't stay to watch. I buckled Noah into his car seat, gave him a kiss on his soft little forehead and drove away. Not because I hated Olivia. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I had finally learned what love was supposed to feel like, and it wasn't what we had. Next month, Noah will turn 1 year old. I'm planning a small birthday party. Just close friends, some balloons, a messy smash cake, and laughter that's real. Olivia will get her time the next day. We're not enemies anymore. We're not friends either. We're just two people raising a child we both love separately. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I'm not scared of the future. Because Noah and we're not broken. We're just getting started.